We now turn to the minor prophets. There are 12 minor prophets in the Old Testament. And as we learned before, the minor prophets, because they're shorter, actually make up just one book of the Bible with 12 sections. So in the Hebrew Bible, this will be one book, even though it has actually 12 sub-books in it. Let's take a look at those 12 minor prophets, and then we'll jump into the first one, who is Hosea. Here's the 12 minor prophets. The first one is Hosea, or as we say in Latin, Osei, or some people say OC. Then there's Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. In the Old Breviary before Vatican II, the 12 minor prophets were read during the 4th and 5th weeks of November, which are the 2 last weeks of the liturgical year, right before Advent. And thus they create anticipation for the coming of the Messiah, anticipation for the coming of Jesus Christ, which is what we celebrate in the season of Advent. The prophet Hosea is an interesting one because he tells the story of adultery and prostitution, that the people of God have committed adultery against God. And sadly, in Hosea's life, his wife was also an adulteress and a prostitute. So his own life echoes the story of God and Israel. Let's take a look. In chapter 1, God tells Hosea to marry the town whore, a promiscuous woman named Gomer, who has fornicated with many men and has many children from many different men. This marriage recounts that God had married an adulterous people, an idolatrous people, that is Israel. So his wife Gomer is an adulteress. She has cheated on the prophet Hosea, and she has brought public shame upon him. The sad life of Hosea was a living analogy that Yahweh, the God of Israel, had been cheated on by his wife, Israel. Both Hosea and God are married to ungrateful, adulterous women. Now, in chapter 2, Hosea divorces his adulterous wife, Gomer. He puts her away. And so also he says Yahweh has divorced his wife, Israel. He says in chapter 2, upon her children I will have no pity, because they are children of whoredom. For she said, I will go after my lovers. Now, in chapter 3, God commands the prophet Hosea to seek out Gomer. Another man has now enslaved her sexually, and Hosea must go and buy her back. Literally, he has to redeem his old adulterous wife back into his home, back into his family. And so Hosea brings her home, but he refrains from having sex with her for many days. And this is a prophetic sign that Yahweh will also send away Israel into captivity. In a way, he will divorce her, and then God will go back after her, redeem her, buy her back, but then leave her without a king, without temple, without liturgy for many years. Now, in chapters 4 through 10, they describe the prophetic allegory and parallel between Hosea and Gomer and God and Israel. And the false god named Baal is the adulterous lover of Israel. So the worship of Baal is akin to sex with an adulterous lover. Israel has united themselves to this new husband who is Baal, a false god. And most historians agree that the actual liturgical worship of this false god Baal included fertility rites, which included sexual encounters, adulterous relationships there at the temple with temple prostitutes. In chapter 11, God laments over divorcing the northern kingdom. And in chapter 12, Hosea begs for Israel's repentance. Chapter 13, Hosea foretells the destruction of the kingdom at the hands of Assyria. And then in chapter 14, Hosea calls Israel to repentance and penance and promises future redemption while urging fidelity to God, her husband. So what's the application for Christians, for Catholics? Jesus Christ is the bridegroom. The church is his bride. This message that recurs over and over in the 12 minor prophets, as we'll see as we move through them, comes right into the New Testament. Are we an adulterous spouse to Jesus Christ? Or are we a faithful wife to Jesus Christ? Do we obey and serve our husband, our king, our leader, who is Jesus Christ? This also confirms that Jesus isn't just a man. He is the God of Israel. He is consubstantial with the Father. He is truly the Son of God and our bridegroom, worthy of our love and our affection. We'll also see that this pattern has been set down in all the prophets. The prophets are like lawyers in a courtroom, and they are calling out the divorce and the adultery and all the legal proceedings between a husband and a wife. And ultimately, through Jesus Christ, the relationship between a sinful people, a sinful spouse, a wife, is restored by the husband. But the husband, as we see here in Hosea, the husband suffers to bring about that redemption. So it's a profound mystery. It recurs over and over and echoes. We see it in the book of Revelation, where there's the whore of Babylon, and then there's the New Jerusalem. The whore of Babylon is an adulterous pagan wife, whereas the New Jerusalem is a faithful wife who is married to Christ. Thanks for being a member of the New St. Thomas Institute. We'll see this over and over again as we move through these 12 minor prophets at the end of the Old Testament. God bless.